The evening Daniel met Claire began with a feeling he could not name, a quiet pressure in his chest that told him this night would not pass like others, and as he stood outside the small cafe near the river in Portland, watching people move past with umbrellas and hurried steps, he wondered why his hands were slightly shaking even though he had faced bigger moments before, moments that involved jobs, moves, and endings, yet this felt different, heavier, as if something unseen was already asking more from him than he planned to give. Daniel was a simple man by nature, steady, careful, someone who believed life worked best when expectations stayed low and routines stayed firm, and agreeing to meet Claire after weeks of online conversations had already felt like a risk, but curiosity had pushed him forward, curiosity mixed with loneliness he rarely admitted, and when the cafe door opened and Claire stepped inside, the world around him seemed to pause just long enough for him to notice. The way she carried herself, calm but alert, like someone who had learned strength the hard way, her hair slightly damp from the rain, her eyes scanning the room until they found him, and in that moment Daniel realized his idea of her had been too small, not wrong, just incomplete, because she was not just a woman from messages and late replies, she was presence, weight, history, and as she smiled and walked toward him, he felt something inside him stretch beyond comfort, beyond safety, and they greeted each other simply, no dramatic words, just a shared smile and a soft laugh at the awkwardness of finally being real. Yet even in that first minute, Daniel sensed the meeting was bigger than a date, bigger than curiosity, and once they sat down, conversation moved quickly, not rushed but alive. Flowing from small topics into deeper ones without effort, Claire spoke about moving from Vancouver after a breakup that had changed her view of love, not bitter, just honest, explaining how starting over in the US felt like stepping into cold water, shocking but necessary, and Daniel listened closely, surprised by how easily he cared about the details of her life, the way she chose her words carefully, the pauses she took when memories brushed too close, and when it was his turn, he spoke about staying in places too long, about choosing safety over risk, about relationships that faded not from anger but from neglect, and Claire listened the same way, with attention that made him feel seen rather than judged, and as the rain continued outside, time slipped forward unnoticed, cups emptied and refilled, and Daniel realized he had stopped thinking about what to say next because he no longer felt like he was performing, he was simply there, present in a way he had not been in years. Yet beneath the warmth of connection was a growing awareness that this feeling demanded something from him, that caring at this level meant stepping beyond control, and when Claire laughed softly at something he said, a sound gentle but full, Daniel felt both joy and fear because he knew how rare it was to feel understood so quickly, and rare things often came with a cost. And as the cafe began to empty and the lights dimmed slightly, they both sensed the evening drawing to a close, a quiet sadness settling in not because the night had gone badly but because it had gone too well, and when they stood outside again, the rain had stopped, the air cool and clean, and they lingered longer than necessary, neither wanting to be the first to leave. Claire tucked her hands into her coat pockets and said she was glad they met, her voice steady but softer now, and Daniel agreed, though the words felt too small to carry what he meant. And when they finally parted, Daniel watched her walk away, noticing the confident rhythm of her steps and the slight hesitation before she crossed the street, as if she felt his gaze, and standing there alone, Daniel understood that something important had begun without asking permission, something bigger than he expected, something that could change the careful balance of his life, and as he turned to head home, he wondered not whether he liked Claire, but whether he had the courage to face what came next if he let this feeling grow. After that first evening, Claire tried to tell herself it was just a meeting, nothing more, but every time her phone buzzed with a message from Daniel, her heart betrayed her intentions, and over the next few weeks, they met often, coffee turning into walks along the river, short stops at small bookstores, and quiet dinners where conversation seemed effortless yet meaningful, each meeting peeling back layers neither of them had planned to show, Daniel learning about Claire's childhood summers by the ocean, her quiet struggles with trust, her moments of loneliness even in crowded rooms, while Claire discovered Daniel's long-held fears about failure, the weight of decisions he carried silently, and how his laughter could suddenly fill a space without anyone asking for it, yet with every new detail, a gentle tension grew, a sense that this was no ordinary connection, that their hearts were inching closer even as they hesitated, and Daniel, who had always believed love should be simple, found himself questioning everything he thought he knew, realizing that attraction was only the surface of what was happening, that real feelings were complex, demanding patience, courage, and honesty, And Claire felt the same, recognizing the pull toward someone who saw her fully, yet fearing the vulnerability it demanded. She almost confessed one evening as they walked under the soft glow of streetlights, the city quiet around them, that she was scared to love again, scared of the risks, scared of opening doors she might not want to close. But she held the words back, and Daniel, noticing her hesitation, almost told her he felt fear too, that he was trying to hold something bigger than himself, something that could shift everything he thought was steady in his life, but neither spoke. And the silence became a language of its own, a quiet acknowledgement that what they shared was growing faster than either expected, that love sometimes moves in whispers and small moments rather than grand declarations, and every laugh, every glance, every gentle touch of her hand on the back of a chair became a thread weaving them closer together, until Daniel noticed he was thinking of her constantly, imagining her smile before he saw it, wondering how her day had gone, and feeling a tug in his chest when they were apart, a longing that was bigger than anticipation, bigger than simple attraction, and Claire felt that too, a warmth that came uninvited and unwelcome, because she had promised herself she would not let anyone in so completely again, yet here she was, letting him, piece by piece, into spaces she had kept closed for years. And as they sat one evening by the river, watching the reflection of city lights ripple on the water, the words they wanted to say hovered unspoken. Delicate and fragile, carrying the weight of possibility and fear, and in that quiet moment, Daniel realized he didn't want simple love or fleeting affection. He wanted something enduring, something worth risking discomfort and heartache, while Claire understood that she had to decide whether to let someone witness the parts of herself she had always hidden, the scars, the doubts, the hopes she whispered to herself at night, and both of them felt the intensity building without fully naming it. A truth that was almost too big to handle but impossible to ignore, and as they finally walked back toward the street, lights casting shadows that mirrored their hesitation, they both knew something profound was forming, an emotional bond that was growing quietly, insistently, beyond casual connection, beyond control, and yet, with the depth of feeling came fear, the fear that opening completely could lead to heartbreak, that love this strong demanded courage neither was sure they fully possessed, and they parted that night with the softest of goodbyes, a lingering touch of hands that neither let go. Quickly, carrying the unspoken acknowledgement that what had begun was bigger than either expected, bigger than comfort, bigger than plans, and as Daniel watched Claire disappear into the dimly lit streets, he realized he was no longer interested in simple, safe encounters, that he wanted more. He wanted real, and Claire, walking home with her coat wrapped tighter around her, felt the same, knowing that her life had quietly shifted in ways she could neither ignore nor control, and that something precious, delicate, and terrifying was growing between them, and in the quiet of her apartment, she admitted to herself that she had begun to care, deeply, and with that admission came both hope and fear, a reminder that feelings this strong are always bigger than we expect. And handling them requires more than thought, it requires courage. It was a Tuesday evening when Claire's phone buzzed with a message that made her heart race and her hands tremble, a message that reminded her of a life she had paused but never fully left behind, an opportunity to return to Canada, to face unfinished family matters, old friendships, and the memories she had carefully tucked away, and immediately she felt a whirlwind of emotions, excitement, fear, sadness, and guilt all at once. Because as much as this chance pulled her back to familiar ground, it also threatened what she had quietly built with Daniel over the past weeks, and that night, she decided to meet him, needing to see his face, to feel his presence before she allowed herself to make any decision. Daniel noticed her unease the moment she arrived, the way her smile faltered, how her hands fidgeted with the strap of her bag, and he sensed that something important had shifted, something heavier than the conversations they had shared, and when Claire finally spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "I might be leaving," she said, and the words hit Daniel like a sudden chill, sudden and unexpected, though he had always known life could demand sudden changes, and yet this felt personal, immediate, and urgent. He nodded, trying to mask the tension in his chest, trying to breathe through the sudden knot of fear and longing, knowing that what he felt for her was far beyond casual attachment, that it was deep, complicated, and demanding, and he wanted to say everything at once, to promise her safety, love, patience, but words failed him, because love this big could not be captured in sentences, could not be confined to promises he might not be able to keep. Claire watched him, her eyes shining with uncertainty, because she too was torn between the pull of her past and the fragile, blooming connection they had, the tenderness of shared smiles, quiet conversations, and walks by the river, and in that space, their silence became a conversation, heavy with unspoken truths, with the weight of feelings neither could fully name, and Daniel finally broke the quiet with a simple, earnest statement, "I don't want to lose this," and those words hung between them, carrying hope and fear, a plea and a confession rolled into one, while Claire, feeling the gravity of the moment, replied, "Neither do I. But sometimes handling something big means being brave, not holding on too tight," and as she spoke, Daniel understood the wisdom in her words, the painful truth that love sometimes required restraint, patience, and courage, even when the heart ached to hold tighter, to demand more, and they hugged, a hug that was longer than friends should allow, yet shorter than lovers would desire, a hug that held years of unspoken emotion, a recognition of the bond forming between them, tender and fragile. And as they pulled apart, each felt a mixture of relief and longing, the warmth lingering like sunlight through thin clouds, both aware that this could be an ending or merely a pause, and as Claire walked away under the dim glow of streetlights, Daniel stayed frozen for a moment, watching the rhythm of her steps, noticing the slight hesitation before she crossed the street, realizing that every choice, every action now mattered, that love this significant was never simple or convenient, and in the quiet that followed, Daniel felt a surge of determination mingled with fear, understanding that handling something bigger than expected required more than patience, it required resilience, honesty, and the courage to face uncertainty without retreat, while Claire, walking home with the crisp evening air brushing her face, admitted to herself that leaving might not mean letting go, that love this deep did not vanish with distance, and she thought of Daniel's eyes, steady and earnest, of the conversations that had revealed not only truths but vulnerabilities, and she knew that whatever decision she made, it would shape not just the present but the way they would both understand connection, trust, and love, and in that night, filled with unspoken promises and the quiet ache of possibility, both realized that the weight of what they were experiencing was heavier than either had expected, more intense than fleeting attraction, and handling it would test them, stretch them, but also teach them about courage, patience, and the quiet, transformative power of caring for someone beyond what words could contain. And as the city settled into the night, the streets calm and reflective, each felt the strange comfort of knowing that even in separation, the bond they had formed was alive, fragile but persistent, and the story between them was far from over, only paused, waiting for the next chapter where choices, courage, and hearts open to risk would meet again. Months passed, and the quiet stretch of time tested Daniel and Claire in ways neither had expected, teaching them that love did not vanish simply because distance grew, that feelings this deep could transform rather than fade, and during those months, Daniel spent countless evenings replaying their last meeting in his mind, recalling her words, her hesitation, the warmth of her hands in his, and understanding that handling something bigger than expected required patience, faith, and trust in the unseen, while Claire, back in Canada, felt the same tug at her heart, missing the small, steady moments with Daniel, the shared laughs, the quiet walks, the way he made her feel seen and understood, yet learning that longing could teach resilience, that absence could shape clarity, and when she finally sent the simple message, "I'm back," it carried months of unspoken emotion, hope, and fear, and Daniel read it with a mixture of disbelief and relief, feeling a rush of warmth that made the world around him feel lighter, as if the air itself had shifted to welcome her return, and when they met again at the same cafe where it had all begun, there was no grand announcement, no dramatic gestures, just two people standing quietly in front of each other, hearts carrying the history of shared moments, distance, and reflection, and Daniel, smiling softly, said, "This was bigger than I expected," a truth he had carried alone for months, and Claire nodded, eyes glistening, replying, "But we handled it," acknowledging the courage it had taken to navigate the fear, the longing, the uncertainty, and in that moment, the city around them faded, leaving only the quiet understanding that love, when treated with patience and honesty, could endure even the weight of absence, that vulnerability and courage together could create a bond stronger than fleeting passion, and as they walked out into the crisp autumn air, side by side, there was a new rhythm to their steps, careful yet unhesitant, reflecting the wisdom gained from the months apart, the lessons of patience, and the courage to embrace feelings bigger than comfort, knowing that perfection was never the goal, but authenticity, honesty, and the willingness to face fears together were, and every glance between them, every shared laugh, every gentle touch reminded them of what they had survived, of what they had nurtured quietly in the spaces between distance and longing, and as leaves crunched beneath their feet, and the city lights flickered softly, both felt the gentle certainty that their story was ongoing, fragile yet resilient, tender yet strong, a love that had grown beyond what either had expected, bigger than fear, bigger than separation, and in that knowledge, they found not only relief but quiet joy, a steady warmth that told them that handling something bigger than expected was possible, that love, patience, and courage could coexist, and as they paused to watch the river reflect the evening sky, they shared a look that held the weight of all they had endured, all they had learned, and all they hoped to build, a look that needed no words, because the understanding between them was complete, and the future, uncertain yet bright, awaited their steps together, careful, deliberate, and full of promise, and in that moment, both knew that life's biggest challenges, like love, were never about perfection, but about showing up, staying present, and embracing what was bigger than expected with courage, honesty, and an open heart.